Hey everybody, it's Chris, and today I am extra pumped because I am interviewing for the second time my friends Cortney and Kevin Campbell. I first interviewed Cortney. In fact, special designation. Cortney was the very first holistic healing story I ever shared on chrisbeatcancer.com. She reached out to me and just, I don't know, said some nice things about the blog and shared her story in an email. And I was like, whoa, can I interview you? And so we did an interview in 2013 or 12 or something, or 11.
11 or 12.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
So it's been a long time. But anyway, guess what? She's still alive. She's still thriving. She's still cancer free. And I just thought it'd be awesome. And we've become, dear friends, Cortney and her husband, Kevin. And I thought it'd be fun to get together again and introduce you to them. And she also has a fantastic website, a blog called anticancermom.com. And so very, very great resource, especially if you're dealing with lymphoma. And you can connect with Cortney there. So Cortney and Kevin, what's up?
Hey.
Hello.
Happy summer.
Happy summer. You've been at the lake.
Yeah.
Yes, we were telling Chris yesterday was our anniversary, and we went a little off the beaten path with the lack of sunscreen there. And it's okay. The sun's behind the clouds. It's a great day. It feels cool. We'll be all right. Come back. What have we done?
Oh, yes, the classic cloud cover deception.
Right, this is such a deceiving thing.
Yes,
the sun and its clouds. So
happy anniversary, sunburn. That's great.
That's right. Yes, a little something to remember the day by. But
so Cortney. Also, I'm going to throw this out there too. Cortney was instrumental in starting the Healing Strong organization, and she was a big part.
Healing Strong, yeah.
Yeah. We'll get to that for sure, but Cortney was right there in the beginning with Susie Griswold and some other awesome folks, and has been a big part of growing Healing Strong, which I know a lot of folks in our community are a part of the Healing Strong Cancer Support Group network, which is amazing. But anyway, before we get to that, Cortney, let us revisit your cancer story. You guys were newlyweds, and how old were you?
26, same age as you.
Same age as me. And
Yeah.
what were your symptoms?
I really didn't have any B symptoms. I just had a large lump in my right armpit. And then I also had an enlarged lymph node in my left, what do they call that? Like your clavicle area here.
Mm-hmm.
But that was it. I was healthy. I was we were in the middle of P90X. We had just gotten married. We were all about being fit. Funny enough, he had just bought me a Vitamix, and I made milkshakes with it. Remember?
Right, we were experimenting.
I was like, what am I going to do with
milkshakes.
this $400 blender? At the time, kind of upset with him for spending so much money on that. But then, I mean, it's crazy. Just a few months later was when I was diagnosed. Some of you know the story, dumping my salads in the Vitamix with water just to get them down. So
We're getting to that. Don't get ahead of us.
I'm sorry.
We're getting to it though. Yeah, we'll definitely get to exactly what you did. People want to know. The Vitamix, it's a great investment. It's expensive, but you still use it, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's
not nearly what it was, but used to be.
They're making them for much less than 400 now, so that's good.
Yeah, that is good. We love ours.
Yeah.
So how long did the lumps pop up, like sort of like overnight, pretty quickly?
Quickly.
No. You had them in high school.
Sorry. The one in my clavicle area was just I had it investigated 4 years prior.
High school, college, right? Yeah, college.
Yeah, in college, and after little post college, and they just kind of said, well, let's give you some antibiotics, see if it goes down, and it did. But then shortly afterward, came right back up. But I just got so busy, and was a new teacher with, it was a lot of money to go to the doctor even with insurance. So I was like, oh, it's probably fine. It did go down. So
for her, it was
I lived with it for a while.
For her, it was something she lived with, right? For a good many years, and had thought not much about it. But I remember, I think we were at 10 Lizzie's, like in Atlanta or in Buckhead. We were somewhere, and you mentioned, I just got this weird lump, and I was like, what? And for me, that was new information. And I was like, no, we're not, because she was just going to go back to the doctor and get another round of antibiotics or just something. And I was like, no, we need to get this looked at. That's not normal, because I felt it. And I'm like, no, babe, we need to go see something, we need to go do something about this.
In general, that's our dynamic, is I tend to underreact and he's the more of like no, let's take this seriously. Let's check, get this checked out. So that's what ended up happening. He persuaded me to go to the doctor to get it checked out. And it was a very quick progression from, that's something, to next day surgery to get it checked out. Like it was big.
Yeah. Weren't expecting that.
Yeah.
Like,
It ended up being so large that they told me they would have put me under general anesthesia instead of localized, because they gave me the option. They didn't think it was so big, but it was deeply embedded almost to I think it was under my rib cage.
You said you felt him
from my armpit into under my rib cage where they, and I got to see it, which is one of the benefits of once they removed the lump, the tumorized lymph node, whatever it was. And it looked like what cancer would look like, with the vessels all growing off of it, very angry looking, about the size of an egg. So, yeah.
Did you save it?
So it's one of my bigger regrets that I didn't even get a picture of it. I came home and explained
this was
it to
before
Kevin.
like camera phones.
There was no
thing.
smartphones. This is 2008. Yeah. Well, I mean, the iPhone had just come out, but I didn't have one.
And post like surgery, you're not like, quick, give me my camera. So
oh yeah, and I didn't have my phone with me, but
I, of course, being the visual guy, the art background and all that, I'm like, babe, you gotta like at least draw me a picture or something. So she drew a picture on this napkin, like fresh out of surgery, of like exactly what it looked like with the veins and the little.
Actually, on my Instagram, I did a story a couple of months ago. I haven't finished it yet, but I was just telling my cancer story on my Instagram account, which is also Anti-Cancer Mom, if anyone wants to check it out. But and I showed the picture, so you could see it there.
Yeah,
the napkin.
Yeah, the napkin,
sketch.
the picture of the napkin, and the picture of my, where it was removed from, and all right after surgery. But yeah, so that went really fast, and the doctor was this really great. I loved the surgeon. We listened to classic rock together while he performed the surgery and played Guess's song. And anyway, at the end, he was he's like, I'm so sorry. This looks really worrisome to me. And he was really honest with me. And I was just like, oh, okay, all right. Well, here we go. I mean, I was so calm about it. I think I was so naive. I just didn't believe that a 26-year-old, girl who was halfway through P90X, went to the gym every day, could even have this thing going on, this possibility. So, so that was that. And a week later, we ended up back in the surgeon's office, and he said it's going to be a lymphoma. Those are his words.
I think we talked to him on the phone. I had some questions for him, and he was like, without beating around the bush, that gentle doctor's bedside manner. He's like, it's going to be cancer. Like, oh,
I guess he'd seen it enough to know, but yeah, he was right. And it took, after that, I'm going to speed some of this up because we could go really into details, but it took 2 additional weeks after that. So 3 weeks from the surgery to get a final.
Piedmont Hospital couldn't diagnose it. So they sent it to like the Yoda of lymphomas out of North Carolina.
Emory couldn't diagnose it. Then
that's right. Piedmont to Emory.
Piedmont to Emory, and then to UNC Chapel Hill, where
I used to have that guy's name memorized.
Peter Banks.
Thank you. Peter Banks. That's right.
Dr. Peter Banks. Never met him, but I've read his pathology report, and he was the one to diagnose me with a much less aggressive. They thought it was aggressive at first, but we were very fortunate that it wasn't as aggressive, but it was very rare.
It's a slow growing
nodular lymphocyte predominant Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is not classical, but it's a Hodgkin's lymphoma. So it's a really rare subtype, and less aggressive in its early stages, but tends to morph into aggressive leukemias in its later phases. So anyway,
it's interesting that they designated it as less aggressive when it grew so fast.
It did.
In your body.
I agree. That's always been a very baffling part, because you don't notice something like that huge, size of an egg, Right. I didn't notice it until that I was just kind of like, got a little armpit itch while I was grading papers at my desk one day. And it's like, that's really that's noticeable. That's a big thing.
There's a lump. Yeah.
It's a lump.
That's a bit of a head scratcher that they would call it less aggressive, but
I don't know.
Okay. So what was the next step? What did they tell you?
Let's see. The typical,
you come in right away.
They had already done the biopsy. So we knew that. Get your PET scan.
We met with the oncologist, and they had to do a bone biopsy.
PET scan, right? CAT scan, PET scan, and then a bone marrow biopsy to rule out any bone, stage 4 involvement.
And mind you, this is moving quick. For context, we've been married 3 months. And you're supposed to be like on cloud nine, newlyweds. And
yeah,
here we
honeymoon.
are, you know.
Yeah, we had like family members mad that they didn't get their thank you notes, and we're like, we're dealing with freaking cancer.
Wow,
So sorry,
You know, that
sorry
kind
if
of
that
stuff.
family member sees this, but hopefully they feel bad now.
They should.
Anyway, but yeah, so we had all the PET scan, the CAT scan, the bone marrow biopsy. That bone marrow biopsy came back negative. There was no bone involvement, but they did. The PET scan showed that I had on this side, that thing that, you know, 4 years ago was not cancer, was indeed cancer on this side. And then they removed the lump, which they knew was cancerous, but then all on my rib cage, they had some, what they call likely cancerous involvement, but it was
Some
so
stuff lit up.
Yeah, some stuff lit up here, but it was like kind of fragmented down my like little tiny lymph nodes. So anyway, so that gave me the stage 2 diagnosis. So
she's on this conveyor belt of like information, just going through the motions. And I was on instantly, I was just on a mission of research and reading and ordering all the things I could find. And I had a job where I was able to work from my own office, but accomplish that work in the most efficient ways ever possible, and then use the rest of my day to just read and articles and watch videos and order books and go home and read those books and highlight and watch those videos and get new leads and go back the next day and do it all over again. And I was doing all of that and bringing her information on a daily basis to say, here, look what this, you know, option says, or look what this doctor says. And
mainly conventional stuff.
And that like, it started with conventional, of course, like because you're like, okay,
trials.
well, what else do we have? Because the prognosis from the doctor was one of infertility. Like, okay, you're gonna, and they just tell you this stuff nonchalantly, right? Like you're gonna lose your stomach lining and your fingernails or whatever, and then like your hair's gonna fall out. And
we
then
want you to see it since you're so young. We
want to see a fertility specialist because your ovaries are going to shut down, but don't worry, there's a small chance they could start back up, so that's good. And you're going to want to freeze your sperm, and it's just like,
I didn't have any sperm, Chris.
Eggs.
You're talking to me in that moment, guys.
No, I'm joking. You're gonna freeze your eggs, or you can freeze embryos, which was, that's a huge decision to have to make.
Yeah, and then don't worry though, because even though you're,
I was told the same thing. You know, you freeze your sperm. Yeah, I was told that.
Yeah.
Even though you're gonna lose your hair, we have the best wig specialists, so you can get a new like cool hairstyle and check out this view. We're going to get your chemo because isn't that really pretty? And you can bring a friend and watch a DVD. And it's just like, wait a minute, we just found out like a second ago. It's, so.
And you should, that's a good, from the point of the chemo room where they're giving you the tour.
Yeah. Right in the middle of that chemo tour. And here comes the hard left turn out of nowhere. We're listening to the nurse following through the room, getting the information a mile a minute, drinking from the fire hose kind of thing. And in my left ear, I heard just a calm voice, basically perpendicular to my own thoughts. And it said, "This is not for you." And that's all it said. And it was clear as day right then and there. And it was only me that heard it.
I didn't hear a thing. I was sitting there going, oh,
and we could park on that statement and talk for an hour, but it's amazing what that one little statement did, because I didn't know what it meant, but all I knew was, having been raised, in faith, like basically my grandfather was a Methodist minister, and my mom has always taught me like, hey, when in doubt, don't. If you don't have peace about something, pause, don't do it. And there was such a lack of peace that I knew there had to be another option. And so that's what led to, let's see what Japan's doing, right? They've got all the latest stuff way ahead of the US. Let's see what Japan's doing. What about Germany? You hear about German new medicine. Okay, what about, Sweden or Europe or, even Mexico? And you start just going down the rabbit holes and finding out all this historical information and other things that lead to, a fork in the road, and you have to choose to continue or turn back. And I think, that's where everyone's choice really, that's all that matters, is that you have that choice, and that people, I think, deserve that information.
And for me, this information that Kevin received, which I did not, for me, that meant he shared it with me. I can't remember if it was that night or the next day or whenever it was, but I remember being angry, like, well, what do you mean this isn't for you? Like, what did we do?
I don't know, babe. That's all it said. And then we just go one by one, and you find yourself in a doctor's office, and there's a magazine on the table about health. And then there's a lady that in Atlanta that started a facility called Living Foods Institute. And then, oh, look, that happens to be the same lady that was in that DVD that I ordered. And then you go there and you make a phone call and you learn new information. And you're in Whole Foods and you're getting a supplement that you learned about. And then in the Whole Foods aisle, you meet a cancer survivor. What? And then you meet somebody that works there that knew a lot about cancer. And then they recommend, the breadcrumbs
one of my
everywhere.
favorite, and I've never shared this story, but if Chris Carr can, I don't know her, but she needs to hear the story. And I know you do, so maybe you could share this with her. But one of the crazy things that happened is Kevin that night, one of the nights that we were dealing with this, like in those first few weeks, he's like, let's just get a movie from Blockbuster. And
you guys
I'll
remember
go pick
Blockbuster?
it up.
That's a place where you would go and you would have to rent.
So let's get a movie
for our younger viewers.
And so he picks up this movie. He's like, I saw you reading this book last summer. It's called P.S. I Love You. This movie, I did read the book and I sobbed through the whole thing and I loved it, but it's about this man who dies of cancer and he writes these love letters to his wife. He writes like one letter a month for the whole first year of his, after he dies.
Yeah, bad movie choice.
She opens the letters. So he comes home, he has no idea what this movie's about, but he sees it on the shelf at Blockbuster. Well, anyway, I was like, heck no, we're not watching this. And so we go back to Blockbuster that night and guess what is on the shelf? Like all alone in the whole. Yes, go ahead.
Before you tell what was on the shelf, the same exact thing happened to me. The very first movie that I went to go see after I was diagnosed, the very first one was this movie called The Butterfly Effect.
Oh,
Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. And yeah, one of the main characters gets cancer and dies.
Oh,
I was like, ah.
We can't get away from this.
I'm like, are you serious right now? Anyway, okay, so you go back to the Blockbuster.
Yes. And
it was on the bottom shelf there. I was looking at all the movies and it was on like the bottom row.
Yeah.
And there was one copy.
It said it was one copy and it was sitting there. There was nothing else around it. Crazy Sexy Cancer, Chris Carr's brand new documentary. I think it must have come out that year or the year before.
Yeah.
But it was right there. And I was like, I got to watch this tonight. And so we brought it home and more confirmation. So I hope she hears this interview.
I even reached out to her husband. I remember emailed him and he responded and
oh, really?
Yes.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And he said, we need more filmmakers out there. Like, you know, tell stories. And anyway, so it was cool because it was definitely just another breadcrumb on the path back to healing, the journey to health.
Because like I said, I was very much like, if not chemo, if not what they're offering, what? And I was such a rule follower. And I want to encourage people watching this that are the rule followers, because I'm honestly still a bit of a rule follower, but I have really strong convictions now about natural medicine, about holistic medicine, because I've experienced I've seen it over and over again, how people do heal, this is what you do every day. So yeah, even though I realize there's moments and there's times that you do need to go off the conventional, the normal, with all the people heading in the same direction. And it takes a lot of bravery to turn around and head the opposite way, but
yeah. Well, there's some important points you made I want to highlight. First of all, if you're in doubt, don't is so good. I mean, that's such a wise philosophy, and because most patients get rushed into treatments and they're full of fear and doubt, right? And they just say yes, right? They just say yes because they feel like they have no other options and they have no other choice. And the obviously what you're trying to do, what I'm trying to do is help people understand that they have options. There's a lot more out there. If you're willing to take the time and read and research and learn, right, you will find answers. And those, what you call breadcrumbs, I call them mini miracles, right? All those little signs, all those little things that come into your life at the perfect time to guide you on that path that you've chosen. And the thing is, like, you really don't get those necessarily until you step out in faith. It's like when you step out in faith, then God provides those resources, right? But when you're kind of stuck in a place of fear, you're not in the right frame of mind, I don't think, to even notice when those things are coming into your life, right? The helpful people and information is, you don't notice them because you're not looking for them, right? But when you step out in faith into the unknown, your antennas go up, right? It's like you are so aware of everything that's happening to you in every moment of every day, right? Because you're in this like life and death survival mode. But anyway, so yeah, we had the exact same experience where it was like people were coming into my life, information was coming, it was all hitting at the right moment. And the analogy I like to use is like everybody, if you've ever been hiking, there's always this moment like on a hike where you're like, am I lost?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But you're on a trail. So you just stay on the trail. And then eventually you see a little sign and it's like, oh, you're like, oh, good. Okay. Yeah. Keep going this way. We're on the right trail. We're on the right path. And that's what those little mini miracles, they were just like little mile markers, right? Little signposts on the path. And they give you that refreshed feeling of hope and peace, right? That like God is guiding you, he's directing you, and like, okay, we're on the right path. So we just got to keep going, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I needed those so bad, and I'm sure you did too, right?
Oh gosh, yes, yeah.
Absolutely. So
I needed them to know that my husband wasn't crazy or, something that like, I really didn't think he was crazy, but at all. But we were still getting to know, we were married 3 months. Like, it's a big deal to make a decision like this. And our parents, pretty much everybody we knew, with the exception of, I can't even remember who, maybe a few people that were like, oh yeah, I kind of know what you're talking about with, once we got down into the alternative medicine path. But everybody else thought we were absolutely bonkers.
Well, when I found the lead scientist, Dr. Anis Yunus from MD Anderson, on video on YouTube saying chemotherapy, and this was in 2008, chemotherapy in 10 years, I believe we will regard as a barbaric form of treatment, quote unquote. And that these new clinical trials were going to change everything, et cetera, et cetera. And yet we were being offered that exact option, right? Yeah. Chemo. And there was no peace about that. And there were so many other options. And we were discovering, of course, food as medicine and things. Jerry Brunetti gave a 3-hour talk about it, who was a biological farmer and just an incredible resource for us at that time. He had cured himself of stage 3 lymphoma,
and
B-cell lymphoma.
Lived for many years.
Lived like almost, I don't know, 20 years or so after that. Yeah. But he was an incredible resource. And I went with all these books and all this information enthusiastically when I had an appointment with the nutritionist at the hospital. And so again, just trying to protect her. She's dealing with everything. And I'm over here on the logistics and Q&A side, very thorough minded about all this and trying to, what about this? What about this? Do you see this? And I sit down like 10, 15 books, boom, right here with the nutritionist. And she's looking at me like cross-eyed, like, what are you doing? Just do this simple thing. I'm like, but those things, can you talk to me about the cancer, like efficacy here, like the anti-cancer properties about these things? Or it was just like, you're not supposed to be asking all these questions. It was the first kind of confirmation that I think we were poking those walls that are set there by others for you to stay inside of. And, once you figure out that those walls are set by people, in most cases, no smarter than you, it's like you can set your own rules and go down your own path. And it's incredible. So we ended up, I'm telling the story now, but jump in. We ended up firing our oncologist from that location, from that hospital.
We didn't fire him. The people pleaser says, we said, we're going to seek a second opinion. We'll get back to you.
We politely excused ourselves and never went back again.
Good. And hey, it's a great strategy.
I've told people that because there are lots of people like me. I'm married to, you and Kevin are similar in this way. You're not afraid to just tell people. You're very confident. You're not afraid to just tell them, no, this is not how it is. This is how I'm going to do it. But I didn't have that. I have maybe a little more now, but at the time did not. So yeah,
just understanding
it's okay not to call them back.
Everyone needs to understand that these doctors are very quick, and they're good people. They don't, they studied hard. They've mastered their form of medicine.
They got their toolbox.
And they are quick to recommend things for which they might have little to no experience. Even the doctor we were meeting with had to confer with his colleagues, his professors, his teachers or whatnot, the guys over him at MD Anderson, and confirm that he was recommending the right thing. And they didn't have much to offer outside of, the standard. And we were just like, you know what, it's us that has to live with that, the side effects or the reality of these decisions. And they can easily recommend something and go home and go to bed, and we have to live with it. And her, and this is where the relationship between like her family and us at the time, like we were newlyweds, her family had opinions because her grandfather had lymphoma. Her aunt
My
had it
mom's
at a
twin
young age
sister had the exact with Hodgkin's.
and
Yeah.
had treated it with the chemo and radiation and so forth. And then that led to breast cancer later in life. And then she was having a resurgence of cancer at the same time.
Yeah.
And so here we have her family enthusiastically like recommending that we do what her aunt was doing. Let's get you to Duke, let's get you the best doctors and the best care. That's what we're doing. You should do it too. And I worked at a church at the time, and the senior pastor is saying, listen, your job is not going anywhere. We want to cover your position, and we have contacts at MD Anderson will pay to fly you out there. Like, they were being so accommodating, but none of it, there was peace in none of it. And I just could not do it. It's like, this is so loving. And so, and that, people will, in their best minds and in the most loving way they know how, will try to tell you what to do. But if you don't have peace about it, you can't do it, or you're not where you're necessarily supposed to be.
I never heard that part of your story. And that is actually, that is kind of crazy to me that, I mean, your church offered to pay to send you, because most people would be like, oh my gosh, the church is going to pay to send us. We have to go.
It's meant to be. God's providing.
Yeah. And yet you were like, no, I don't feel, this just doesn't feel right. I don't have peace about this, even though, my pastor and my church are trying to do this for us. So it's like, it's not even that they were, they were just trying to be helpful. Right.
That's right.
And that's what people are going to do in your life. There lots of people are going to try to be helpful, but at the end of the day, most of the people that are trying to be helpful, they don't actually know how to help you, right? They didn't heal cancer.
They're
you know what I
doing
mean?
what makes logical sense, but you have to make this decision on a much deeper level. And I think that's what is missing from a lot of the recommendations of people, because it's just, hey, A plus B equals C, you should do this. And, oh, I had a friend that did alternative, it didn't work out. Well, what does that mean, right? That's a whole other discussion.
Well, and look, I'll touch on that because that question comes up all the time. And the reality is, most of the stories you hear where it's like, I was even told that by a family member, well, I know someone who tried alternative treatments and they died, right? Mm-hmm. And that's really scary to hear that. But the reality is, most people that try quote unquote alternative, whatever that means, because that can mean anything. That can mean drinking your own urine or eating tree bark, or, it can mean anything.
Right.
They usually try it as a last ditch effort once they've been sent home to die. Their bodies are wrecked. Yeah. They're destroyed.
I never seem to recall the millions of people every year that die from conventional. So it's like, okay, 2 people maybe that died from pursuing alternative, but you fail to bring up the millions and millions of people every year that pass away from conventional. So right. I get it. And I understand that concern, but it's like, again, it goes back to being prayerfully led. And so we'll jump back into Bill Henderson came along.
Yeah.
You went to Living Foods Institute, right?
Yeah. I don't even know if it's still there anymore.
I'm not sure either. Was that Brenda Cobb?
Yeah. Yep. It was there for a long time. And it was a very helpful place where you could get everything that, you probably hear about and what people do to detox and
raw foods.
Juicing. Like, I learned how to prepare raw foods and the benefits. Like, I learned the why behind what I was doing for 12 days of intense, staycation there. And we lived here, but so we went there, we drove there every day.
So
but
the calendar on this, September lump surgery, October finally got the diagnosis. So married for 2 months in September, 3 months by the time cancer diagnosis came along. And then now in January.
We need to go back to November 4th, which was election day 2008. And that was when I started, after reading Bill Henderson's book, Cancer Free, Your Guide to Gentle Non-Toxic Healing. That's when I started. That was my starting point. His book, his research was the starting point of where I was going to build my protocol on. And so I didn't know that at the time. At the time, I remember thinking, I'm just going to do this for 3 months and see what happens. And that was
her kind of
my agreement, because I was very concerned.
Like, okay, but I'll give it 3 months. And I was like, great, just
because we still were not seeing like 100% eye to eye, but that's where I think I could take, in a way, my newlywed independent woman power back, where I was like, yes, we're married. Yes, we're one now. Yes, my body is your body kind of stuff. Because it's true, biblical marriage. yeah, so that was where I'm saying, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. So we both agreed that Bill Henderson's work was a great place to start. And I did everything he suggested in his book. I just started right then. And that was in.
And you gave
November
yourself
4th.
3 months.
Yeah.
Along
I said,
with-
let's go
along
to
with,
November. Yeah.
Along with
Yeah.
the Budwig protocol,
Yeah, well,
supplements you're ordering.
he had recommended the Budwig mixture, which is part of Johanna Budwig, the German biophysicist from, her works from the 1930s and 40s, 50s.
Messiac tea.
Yeah. So beta 1 3D glucan was part of Bill's recommendation. So I took that every morning first thing. And then the raw organic vegan diet for me at the beginning, like I mentioned earlier in the interview, was the Vitamix, blending it up and pinching my nose and downing it because it was so difficult.
Now, wait, hold that thought, because as some of you who have this book right here, Beat Cancer Daily, there's an entry from Cortney about this.
Yes.
And Kevin actually submitted, he has an entry in there too. But Courtney's, what I love so much about your story, and the reason I'm interrupting is because I don't want you to jump over it, is that, you were making a green smoothie, right? Every day, a giant Vitamix blender full of veggies, 64 ounces. So it's the full container, right?
As high as it goes.
And I want you to tell what was in it. But before you do that, you didn't like it. It didn't taste good to you. And so you would hold your nose to drink it. And you held your nose and drank it every single day for a year and a half, holding your nose.
It's a long time. I mean, I remember I did the Budwig protocol for 18 months with my nose pinched. And that only thing that changed, and I don't want to give it away, but I ended up, our daughter was born 18 months after I started my cancer protocol, and I couldn't nurse I had to use both hands. So I had to give up the
nose holding.
Yeah, we could have used a nose plug, like a swimmer's nose plug. We didn't do it. We didn't know about that then anyway. We didn't think about it. But yeah, but it was good. I had to take my, my training wheels off or whatever and start. I mean, yeah. And I did fine. And then I learned about, putting a little stevia in there and some cinnamon and different things. I have lots of ideas because I did it for so long.
Now, what was in the giant green smoothie?
So at first I just didn't know, Chris, I didn't know what vegetables existed. I didn't eat vegetables. I mean, I didn't even know really like avocado or, I knew very basic things. So it was a lot of like lettuce and carrots and tomato and whatever would be like in a classic American salad. But I started starving. Like started starving broccoli. Yeah. And so it was really what I think the Budwig mixture helped me, because if it's the cottage cheese flaxseed oil. So it's really high in fat and protein. So that helped me keep my weight on, but it still was difficult to keep weight on. And it really wasn't until the Living Foods Institute and going and learning about different foods and sprouts and, how I could use avocado in a smoothie. Like I would never have thought to put an avocado in a smoothie. That's how basic I was. I was just a basic American eating, kid. So
Lunchables.
Yes, I was raised on Lunchables. Oh my goodness. I can taste them right now. And Cheez-Its and a Diet Coke,
Lunchables. And what were the little cheese and cracker snack pack with the little red plastic?
Oh, with the stick?
Yeah, the red plastic stick. What were those called?
What are they called? Cheese spread.
Cheese and crackers, or
do they make those anymore?
I don't know.
All the moms today, I don't know if anyone's eating that with their kids.
I could tell a bad story about those, but I won't.
Well, and somebody's going to ask, I'm not a fan of the Budwig protocol.
I know you're not.
I'm not a fan, but I'm also acknowledge there are people who consumed it as yourself, and it was part of their protocol, and they got well. And so, hey, that's great. Because if I don't put that disclaimer in there, I'm going to get a million emails. People saying, "Oh, I thought you didn't." Yeah. So,
and I do have a little story about long-term use of the Budwig protocol and how it became a problem later on. But
well, let's get to that. But just to put a button on the other thing, again. Your story, your determination is so awesome. And there's such an important lesson there, because I know there are people who are trying to get well and they have issues with food, right? They just have issues with food, with I don't like vegetables. I don't like the taste of this. I don't like the texture, whatever. That wasn't me. I mean, my approach was, if it's going to help me, I'll eat it. I don't care what it tastes like. And I did figure out a way to make it taste good, like People know me from the giant cancer fighting salad. It's on the cover of, my cookbook or whatever. And I figured out a way to make it taste delicious and I enjoyed it. But,
Oh,
but
it's so
I,
good now. Yeah.
I decided like, it doesn't matter what it tastes like. I'm going to get it in my body. And you struggled with the taste and smells or whatever it was, but your determination just to eat it anyway, right? You're like, I don't care. I'm going to get it in my body. And so you really have no excuse. If you have to hold your nose, like get food in your body, that food that will help you, anti-cancer food, fruits and vegetables.
And I remember too,
Fruits are
thinking
easy.
about the Vitamix was good because it was pre-digested, right? It's like this idea of you want to save all of your body's energy and your enzymes and so forth, and give it food that's the lightest on the burden on the system as you possibly can. I remember that was kind of our thought process back then. And while we're speaking, I pulled it up on her website real quick, Chris. We could blow through this, but this is literally from
This
your
is
website.
what I ate. This is what I ate during my cancer, where I was actively trying to heal. And I said
smoothie.
half an avocado.
Courtney's kick butt cancer fighting concoction.
And I mean, this would change depending on what was available at the store sometimes, but generally this is what I needed to put into my smoothie every day in order for it to be therapeutic.
That's 3 to 4 cups
And enough calories
cups?
as well.
3 to 4 cups.
3 to 4 cups water, half an avocado,
Water, though.
Brussels, 2 full Brussels sprouts, 1 leaf of kale, half an apple, 3 handfuls of baby greens or spinach, half a cup of broccoli, half a cup of broccoli sprouts, half a cup lentils, sprouted lentils and mung beans or both, half a handful of sunflower sprouts, half a handful of buckwheat lettuce sprouts, 1 tablespoon dulse or kelp seaweed, and a pinch of cayenne pepper.
I love it. It's hardcore. It's tons of sprouts, tons of cruciferous veggies. That is a recipe for success.
So, and later on,
organic as much as possible.
Later on, I started adding carrots and tomatoes and like half a pepper and things like that. And maybe put a full apple instead of half an apple and some lemon. Lemon would always help. But yeah, I had Bill Henderson in his book at the time, and I think he even changed his stance on this, but he was concerned about the fruit and sugar, which, it's like I'm sure you get a million emails every day about people still asking you, can I eat fruit from sugar? So for me, where my convictions were at the time, I said, I'm just going to eliminate any, and Living Foods Institute taught this too, for their candida people, they were like, let's just, eliminate all the issues. So they were very low sugar, even from fruit. And so that's why my smoothie didn't have very much fruit in it. But everyone's got to make that decision for themselves. And, some people may have a difficulty getting things down if it's not sweet. So anyway, just want to put that out there.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. And for those folks out there that don't, or that want to know my opinion on it, I think fruit's wonderful. We don't need to be afraid of fruit. Yeah. An apple is not the same thing as a Snickers bar. Okay. It's just not the same. And so the sugars in fruit, they taste good. They delight your taste buds. Mm-hmm. They light up pleasure centers in your brain. So they give you just joy from eating sweet fruit. But the fruit is not just a pile of sugar. It's delivering vitamins, minerals, enzymes, antioxidants, and anti-cancer nutrients to your body and to your cells. So fruit is awesome. It's wonderful. So I don't think anyone should be afraid of fruit or the sugar in fruit.
And perhaps at the time, if it just was a different time then.
Totally.
People were still debating that. So
yes. And people still debate it now too, but I think there's more research has come out. I mean, even just, there's, really, really fascinating research came out, I believe published this year in 2022 at Vanderbilt, where they were studying cancer cell metabolism. And they realized, that tumor cells, the cancer cells in tumor cells, use the least amount of sugar in the tumor. And the cells inside a tumor that were using the most sugar, which would light up on a PET scan, were the immune cells inside the tumor. Cancer cells were using much more glutamine than they were sugar. So the big sugar consumers in the tumor, which for years they assumed were cancer cells, are actually immune cells. So anyway, the science is progressing and we're learning more things, and there's more reasons not to be afraid of sugar, especially in fruit.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you came up with this daily concoction.
Yeah.
And you were drinking it every day.
It made it easier for me. I was a 5th grade teacher at the time. I still worked every day. So I would just make 2 big jars in the morning, and that was my lunch every day. And so I just didn't have to worry about it. I think being distracted and going to work every day helped me because I knew I just had these little moments of, time to chug, and I literally would chug my smoothie, maybe like a pint at a time. Just trying to get them down and stay full and stay energized. And it's the best I ever felt in my life. I just felt so good.
And that was all being consumed in tandem with like 26 different supplements. In addition to, of course, the Budwig mixture in the mornings.
And then the SEAC, which we also included as part of our, I think it's it's a very important addition to anyone with a lymphatic cancer, is to consume an SEAC with the 4 original herbs that Nurse Casey, I think we debate how to say her name, Cassie. Anyway, her blend that she said she had success with her patients. So.
Yep.
And did you drink the SEAC twice a day, morning and evening, or just? Usually
3 times a day.
Oh.
2 to 3 times. Depending, I think I drank it when I got home from work and morning, got home from work. And I didn't do that for months and months. I did little spurts.
Did you use some different products? Did you use like the fluorescence and then also the SEAC International?
Yeah, at the time, fluorescence was the only thing available at Whole Foods. So that's what we used. It was the tonic, and it was expensive. It's like $40.
And that's like the 8 herb formula.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
and then the original is 4.
Exactly. I used the 4 herb now. I just finished a 3-week little boost or whatever you want to call it. So after I had a baby in May 2021, and then and then I nursed for a year. So I tried to just not do nursing or pregnant. So
speaking of babies, so we were in November 4th, started the protocol at home there, and then January we were at Living Foods, right?
Yeah, and they asked me to go off the Budwig while I was there, because they said, "Oh, Budwig, kind of like you."
But
and we didn't want to, but we did, because we wanted to do, like, they were doing something there. They had their certain thing that they laid out for their people, their clients.
No dairy.
And no dairy. So we went off, and my tumor we actually went off the SEAC too during that time. And my tumor increased in size. I could feel it in my neck. And so after those 12 days, I just said, "Oh, I don't know about this. Like, I just want to go back to doing what we were doing before." Cause I was all raw and I was all vegan and all, sprouted and, doing all this great stuff. But I had gone through intense detox as well. I had 8 colonics in 7 days, right? Something like that.
7 colonics. Yeah.
Something. It's a lot of colonics.
We had a total
of that.
We had a total of 10, 5 each. And I gave you 2 of mine and you did 7. You need to do your colonics, I think, in my opinion. I mean, we saw the parasites come out, and it's just like,
I had digestive problems even after going raw vegan, doing all the things for months. It wasn't until I went to Living Foods and had all the colonics that I actually got my digestion was great again. And I stopped being gassy. That was one of if I had a B symptom of lymphoma, which it wasn't, it was a B symptom of a bad diet before, I changed my diet. I had horrible digestion and gas and bloating, and I mean, a 26-year-old and newly married, that's just not sexy.
I did parasite cleansing too. And I was always disappointed because I really wanted stuff to come out. I was looking like, but I never got the satisfaction of like seeing stuff come out,
Oh, gosh.
So that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
And it was during that period of time in February, the following month, when we found out we were pregnant with our first child. And that sent like everything off the rails. Like, what? Okay, this is a huge monkey wrench in our
You're so irresponsible.
plans to do, and so now if the family was concerned before, right now they're really concerned.
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, now you need to listen to us, because you guys were doing your thing, but now this is our grandchild's involved in this now. So it's a lot of pressure. They say,
I honestly think back at it sometimes, and I want to go like this, because I get embarrassed thinking about how, I was just so naive to what probably everyone else was thinking. I taught at a school where there were a lot of busy Buckhead Betty parents. We call them Buckhead Betties because it was in the Buckhead neighborhood of Atlanta, very wealthy, lots of moms, very active in the school. So everybody knew my story. Everyone knew I was the teacher with the cancer. And then everyone knew, oh, I was a teacher with the cancer that is doing this weird alternative treatment, weird stuff. And then I'm the teacher with the cancer doing the weird stuff that's pregnant. And it's like, I'm just like, oh my gosh, what people must have thought of me at the time. But here we are, proving
You're just strutting down the halls going, that's right.
I mean, that's how I felt at the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. But again, just walking in faith, just one mini miracle, one breadcrumb at a time, and just knowing, okay, we don't know what tomorrow holds, but we have peace about where we're at. And that's all we need for now, just day by day.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that we weren't at times, there were tears, there was frustration, there was, certainly fears you have to speak truth into and get rid of. And she started to call me her lie samurai, because it was just this idea of, you can start to believe things about yourself or about your future that's just not from God. And that's not where he wants you. And you cannot heal in that state. And I think that's so critical. And recognizing that need for support and advocacy is what led us down the road to, get into Healing Strong, which we could talk about. But anyway, so jumping forward from February.
So you still had this tumor in your neck.
Yeah.
It had gone down significantly though. So now our new oncologist, we went to at a different hospital, is now doing this exam on her, and he's palpating and he's going, okay, tell me, which side was it on again?
Yeah.
I'll never forget those words.
Which side was it on again?
Couldn't find it, Chris. So
and this was, wait a minute, this was February.
Now at this point, we're probably in March,
April. I went every month, to get
so
my
February. Yeah. So, so from November.
I had severe morning sickness all through March. That was a huge test of faith because I couldn't
talk about freaking out when you can't fight cancer with like crackers.
It was so bad. And I get that way every pregnancy. So I've had to have that many times of just like trusting.
She couldn't eat the green or drink the green smoothies, She couldn't hardly hold down the supplements and things. And you're like, how is this going to play into our healing protocol? Like,
fasting. Sorry.
So
maybe it did play in. I don't know. But and so by May, I was 3 months pregnant and went in on May 4th. It was exactly
post nausea at that point. You're back on the protocol. Exactly
6 months from the point I started, Bill Henderson's recommendations. And the oncologist, I wasn't even expecting to say this, but he just said, you're in clinical remission. There's no evidence of any cancer that I can feel or, that you are exhibiting. So I'll basically see you in 3 months. It went from that every month to I'll see you in 3 months. We'll see. And, I had to get special, like during, even during that pregnancy, we had an OBGYN that wouldn't see us. That it was so embarrassing. Basically told me,
since you're not treating your cancer, you can't be my patient. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And that happened. And then our second one was up for it, but we wanted more of a natural approach to childbirth. And so we ended up after that going with a midwife, and they made us fill out a form basically saying like, if something happened with my cancer during the pregnancy, we wouldn't hold them liable. So it was, interesting. And I had our daughter in November of that year, 10 days overdue, but she came. And, it was like a new light at the end of the tunnel for us. Like, that was where that kind of launched us into where we are now with the whole, like, okay, my cancer's gone. What do we do? Do we do things the same way? Like having to make those decisions about like, how much is enough? Am I doing enough to keep it away? And
one of the things I'll say about Cortney is her personality, she's just amazing. The stick-to-itiveness, as they say.
Tell me what to do and I'll do it.
If anyone out there knows Myers-Briggs type indicator, she's an ENFJ. I'm an ENFP. So I'm all like, yeah, let's do that. And then like it never happens. Or let's start it with enthusiasm, but we don't finish it. We're very creative, looking down into the future all the time. But she's like, give me my checklist, give me my program, give me my thing. I'm going to give my task. I'm going to knock it out. Just incredible. And so she took that bull and just like beat it into the ground like every day. Just stuck that protocol
for 7 years,
pinned it to the mat for 7 years every day. And it was just boom, 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 boom. It's like, babe, you want to do that? Nope, can't do it. I'm on this. Like, okay. So,
And with some cheat, some recreational foods.
Yes,
Um,
I understand that. Well, and it's funny too because our stories also have that other parallel. I mean, I have tons of things in common, but
Yeah.
both diagnosed at 26, but we both had a baby 1 year after our diagnosis. And for people that don't know, men can have babies too. And so
the new thing, it's the latest.
my wife had our baby. She's a woman, by the way. And
Can you explain?
so yeah, it was like a new chapter. There's like the first year of cancer was like, a lot of fear, and it was just that whole, the most intensive season is that first year, and then this baby comes, and then you got this whole new dimension to your life and something else to live for. And so I imagine that probably helped you stay, stay really vigilant and determined.
100%, right?
Yeah, I mean, it did. But I will say at the same time, it brought up more new challenges and how you use your time and, just systems, right?
Yeah, you get a lot less time to yourself.
Yeah. And for us, we had her, and then we added 4 more. So we have 5 children. And,
That's awesome.
Taking a big step back.
I always ruin the surprises.
This is amazing though, because like the example you get to set for your kid, the next generation, you get to leave them with this profound understanding of responsibility and the power they have to take care of themselves and what health really looks like. I mean, case in point, on her 1 year, on our first daughter, on her, kid number 1, on her first birthday, we set her like handmade cake down in front of her.
Applesauce sweetened cake. Yeah.
Yeah. We handed her this cake that had this, just her cakes right in front of her, but she was too busy eating raw broccoli and had no interest in the cake. It's like we had to convince her to stop eating broccoli, which sounds crazy.
It's a nutty story, but it's true. She did not care about her cake. So we had to do the whole fake it with the picture, like put it on her face so we can at least get a picture.
I think we put strawberries at least around the rim, and then she just grabbed the strawberries.
Yeah.
But it's just so cool the knowledge the kids have as a result of our experience, especially Cortney's experience and passion for, our latest adventure, growing our own food and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But
if you feed kids healthy food, they actually want healthy food. They want to eat it, but once you start feeding them junk food, they're going to want to start, they're going to want junk food. Yeah. Because
trust me, we're there a little
bit. I mean, sugar, salt, and high fat foods, they really overstimulate your brain. I mean, they reward your pleasure centers in a much higher intensity than regular food does. And that's why kids love candy, and adults too.
Every parent knows it's harder and harder with the more kids you have to stay that strict. It's like they get the naughtier foods or the junk food faster as you have more
convenience foods. Yeah.
So how do you manage that now? I know we talked about, how do you manage 5 kids and being healthy and,
It's honestly, it's every day. I have to have so much grace for myself because I have this brain and this knowledge of what we've talked to prior to this moment in this interview of all this, like how I ate and all my knowledge of all the, the phytonutrients and plant foods and then to, have to I say drag. And sometimes it feels like drag, in all honesty, 6 other people, because Kevin too, like he never really fully, ate the way I did at all.
I did for the period of time. And then I went slowly. I don't eat anything like I used to, but I tell her it's like whatever she sets down, and this sounds, I don't know if this might sound bad, but whatever she sets down on the table at dinner at nighttime, I'm going to eat without complaining. And I am very, and that's not to say men can't cook or shouldn't cook or anything like that, but I am very, very high on honor, and you've got to honor, like the kids know they have to honor their mom and be grateful. Like gratitude, you cannot, I started to shift into a parental conversation here, but it's like, you just got to maintain that spirit of gratitude that comes from a perspective of, we're blessed to have what we have to eat. And this might not taste exactly the way you wish it did, but why is that? And unpack that a little bit, and then just reset their perspective. And then they start to, I don't know, it's just amazing what kids are capable of, I think, that we underestimate. So it's like, yeah, what kind of kid likes eating healthy food? Well, the kind that's taught that healthy food is really good for them and what it's doing for their body, and is given that on a frequent basis. And then sometimes when that's not the case, then
let me say this though. I will say, to chop enough salad and vegetables for 7 people, you feel like you're a catering business. It does get exhausting. And then you sit there, and then and then the kids stare at their food, and then I know you know what I mean. Like, it can get exhausting.
I don't, because we only have 2 kids, but I'm imagining what you mean.
Yes, but just to, the process of like just that desire for just some ease. So we do try to have healthier versions of normal food. If we have pizza, I've gone from like, we're not gonna have any cheese. Does it have sugar in the dough? Like obsessing, because that's what I did, 7 years.
We need to back up and tell that little story for people, because that's always like a cliff you fall off of. Like, you go through this really strict, lifestyle, and then now here you are today, but nobody understands how that happened.
Right.
And how do you get there? And
I basically have just gradually started letting a little more I love that term you use, recreational foods, back into our life, because simply because it's easier.
I understand that. Yeah.
I need some stress relief sometimes. So the problem is the more you let that food back in, the more the kids prefer it. So it's
slippery slope.
This dance, constant dance where, I start feeling guilty, and they're like, Mom's made salads like 4 nights in a row now. She must be feeling really guilty or scared or whatever it is.
Well, the good thing is that, a child's body is so resilient, you can really pump a kid full of some horrible crap, and they stay healthy.
Every time we start to get down on ourselves, that's exactly what I say to her. Like, babe, we grew up on, manufactured, processed, plastic wrap, microwave, canned food, 80s garbage. And I guess, we're alive.
He's fine.
Yeah, she did get the lymphoma. I got the colon cancer.
Yeah, I was rehabilitated and he's fine.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of grace for that, for sure. And I've been really, obviously, when people have cancer, we encourage them to be 100% committed and really go hardcore with diet and lifestyle change. And then once you get well, you have freedom. You have freedom. You don't have to be as hardcore. You have to be as vigilant. The first few years are really important, and really up to the first 5 years, but definitely the first 2 are when we tell everybody, like, hardcore for 2 years, no excuses. You've got to do this. But that's just life, and there's seasons of life where it's crazy and it's busy, and you're just hanging on, trying to keep everybody fed and clothed, and not playing in the street.
Chris, I want to talk really quick about the 7-year mark was a big line of whatever deviation between like easy, really strict, because it was 7 years. Everything was pretty much seamless. I could manage my protocol. I stayed, like, even at the 7-year mark, 95% plus on, doing my every day. I did the same thing. I ate my Budwig protocol in the morning, and I did my huge green smoothie. And then I would eat like either like some sort of cancer fighting dinner, mostly salads. And then a lot of time, some salmon or something with my family. And then 7 years, our 3rd child was born. And you hear often people talk about adding the 3rd child. I struggled. Just to be completely candid, with my mental health. I struggled with my physical health, with adrenal stuff, with a baby that wouldn't sleep well, and with a toddler and a 5-year-old, and we were homeschooling. It was just this huge, everything about what was perfect, from the cancer point to then was really it was a huge challenging time in my life, and it lasted for about 3 years. But at the point of that, when she was born, almost immediately, the Budwig, the cottage cheese flaxseed oil started to disagree with my body. I started to get this really bad cramp in my gallbladder area after I'd eat it. It was only after I ate it.
Because it's a lot of fat.
It's
Yeah.
a lot of fat. And I had
Mhm.
been doing it for 7 years. And even Dr. Budwig in her writings, if you can buy anything with the German translation to English, like her exact translation said that she wanted her patients to stay on it for 5 years. And I was like, well, I'll stay on it for 7. But yeah, so it was one of the hardest decisions, because when you put almost your faith in your protocol versus in your healer, that's a huge stress point to
You have to let go of, right? So you had to kind of let go of it because it wasn't
like
serving
this
you.
isn't working for me anymore.
Mhm.
And so I did, and it was like, what do I eat for breakfast then? How do I get, enough calories? And it was just so like, I had just been on this robotic protocol for so many years that kept me at peace of mind. So yeah, that was a really hard season for me. But it started with, of course, just, having to make some changes and to really heal from fear and, everything that was involved in just becoming a mother of 3 children and having to face some of my old beliefs. So.
And so you were like, 3 is really hard. Let's have 2 more.
Yeah. We waited 4 years. I was done. That's actually another story.
There's no twins in the mix though, right?
No twins. No.
Yeah.
No, our last 2 are 27 months apart. So yeah, we waited 4 years, and then we had 2 more after that 4-year season of really recovery.
Well, we aren't like superheroes, and we didn't wait 4 years on purpose, but that's,
it just worked out that way.
Yeah.
And it was good. It was a good time I honestly feel like I became someone who could handle 2 more children, because you grow through hardship. And
after 3, Chris, you could have 6 or 7, and it's really no different than 3. There's just the same systems that are in place for 2 get when your systems at 2 get destroyed when you have 3, but then the same systems for 3 pretty much apply to 4 and 5. And we have friends with 6, 7, 8, and I got,
well, your older children become
very helpful, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
And if you're
they're so helpful.
If you're very intentional about, teaching your kids to be helpful and to take pride in being helpful and to see themselves on like the family team versus like fighting for themselves.
Yeah, our older ones are watching the little ones right now in the playroom. So they're all during this interview.
That's great.
I heard a few screams, but I think they're playing.
Yeah, that was a playful scream. But slowly but surely we started to let go of little things like, okay, this pill, this particular supplement, we can phase out. Okay, next, now we can phase this one out. And that was always extremely intentional, very like, okay, wait, what is this doing for us? And do we have any other source we're getting this kind of thing from? And then how often? Okay, we're going to go to half the dose, then we're going to go down to no dose. And it's just sort of like just began to let go of that and to just enter this new phase of just healthy living and living in gratitude for the where we're at in this phase of life, and not having to
feeling like I also put in the work, and my body is not the same body that got cancer.
Right.
So that's another thing that is like, that's a good positive affirmation.
It feels,
for
looking
people.
back, we've talked about how it feels like cancer was this, again, everyone's heard this divine tap on the shoulder, an invitation to live a different way. And now you have that, and you've implemented that, and you've experienced the benefits of that. You can carry it forward and make that part of your legacy. And who knows, that's going to affect our children, grandchildren, and great grandchildren. I mean, hopefully just be something that is instilled in an entire family tree. And along the way, backing up, recognizing that importance for advocacy and support, started Healing Strong, the nonprofit that puts people into small group like environments for those who may be healing from cancer or any other kind of disease that don't have that support. Because, like the Bible says, Jesus could preach anywhere except his hometown, right? And you often find, at least we've found, that your friends may support you, strangers will support you, but your own family may disagree or fight against what you're doing, because of course they're doing it out of concern and often fear and so forth. And Healing Strong exists to empower and educate and help people have those choices where they can have that peace that comes with these decisions that you have to have in order to walk, faithfully forward and pursue your healing journey. So
yeah, I'm a big fan of Healing Strong. Anybody that follows me should know this, but if you don't, healingstrong.org is where you can learn more about that organization. But basically, in a nutshell, it's a network of support groups, local support groups for people who want or are trying to heal holistically, right? Taking a holistic, natural approach, nutritional approach to healing. Started with cancer, but yeah, it's the same principles. It applies to autoimmune disease and MS and lupus and type 2 diabetes and heart disease. Like, it's the same principles. So, but yeah, if there may be a Healing Strong group in your area, you could find out on their website. You could also become a group leader. You don't have to have any qualifications other than being willing to, meet once a month or once a week. It's, however.
In fact, during that time, and when I talk about that year 7 mark, around the time after our 3rd daughter was born, when Susie, that was when we started Healing Strong, was around that time, a little before. And Susie came to me about that time and said, hey, can you?
Who is Susie for the people watching?
I'm sorry. Susie Griswold is the founder of Healing Strong, and she and Kevin.
She's basically an angel on earth.
Yeah.
And
Kevin
she healed her thyroid cancer naturally, and
Yes.
I've interviewed her. So we'll put a link below to that if you want to watch that, folks.
And she said, hey, would you write a leadership guide for our leaders so that we can just, so what I did during that time was I started laying out the bones of the leadership guide, where if you want to become a Healing Strong leader in your community, it's basically a scripted guide. It tells you exactly what to do, and exactly it's as easy as like, say this at your first meeting, say this at your second meeting, show this video at this meeting. It's super easy. We made it as easy as possible, so anyone could become a leader who's willing and passionate, about healing and about supporting those people in your community. So
it's awesome. I've said this lots of times, but I wish, there had been I wish Healing Strong had existed, when I was sick, because I went, most cancer support groups are comprised of people who are, they've got cancer and they're hopeless, and they all just sort of complain to each other. And
it can be a funny little side note if anyone wants to go on Anti-Cancer Mom's site and search for it, but we jumped in with enthusiasm to some of those groups, one in particular for lymphoma. What was it through?
Don't say.
Oh, we can't say it.
We blocked everything
through
out.
one of the prominent
lymphoma
cancer
support
charities or
website.
something.
Yeah. And we went to the lymphoma forum, and there was
a
bunch of people in there, and we were
I was
just
so
trying to be
naive at
helpful,
the time.
and I was trying to share, or she was sharing, and then she calls me up basically in tears talking about how she's just getting eviscerated in this forum. It's like, what the heck? So I jump in, I start reading, and then I start basically replying, and then I just take over. And then
we call Chris, and Chris joined.
I forgot about that part of the story.
Did I go comment too on your behalf?
No, I have I think I left. You can read the whole thing. You can read what Kevin said. You can read what Chris said.
I knew it was going to get
read
what all moderated. They deleted the whole thing.
Trolls said, but Kevin screenshotted it all, so you can see. I screenshotted
every page, and I stitched it together and blurred out the names, and it's on the site. It was like.
Anyway,
that's I vaguely remember. It's a tiny blip in my timeline.
If you were watching this and you were enthusiastic about your holistic cancer protocol, don't go to a conventional site with all cheers
and all your stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, guess what I'm doing?
Yeah, or in person. The in-person groups, the in-person groups, they're not going to be that rude to you as they will on an online forum. But what you'll find is you just won't find a whole lot of hope and encouragement and support, and actual. Yeah, you'll just find like, you're sad and you're scared and you're dying. Me too, right? And so Healing Strong, this is the opposite of that. It's people who are changing their life. They're reading, they're researching, right? They are taking control of their health, and they are, for the most part, people who have decided that they want to live and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get well. Like, those are the kind of people you want to be around, right? You need to be around those kind of people. And I didn't have those people in my life. I wished I did. I couldn't find them in Memphis, right? There was no group. And so anyway, that's my endorsement for Healing Strong. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I'm so thankful to Susie and to you, Cortney. And I know there's a lot of folks behind the scenes that have, worked really hard to create, just to build it up and make it what it is.
Yep.
It's a great thing. And I've given lots of money to this organization. It is a nonprofit. It's tax deductible. You can donate if you feel inspired to. But yeah, I've definitely done that because I support it, not just with my mouth. I support it with my wallet. But anyway, so, I love your perspective. I mean, just your whole life, not whole life, but your whole cancer journey, right? Where you started, going hardcore, listening to your instincts and intuition, stepping out in faith, the fact that Kevin, that you were such a strong advocate for her. I mean, not everybody has that, by the way. And I don't want anybody to get discouraged if you don't have a super spouse like Kevin to help you, because,
the Healing Strong's for, it's exactly the purpose.
Yeah, exactly. And
not heal in isolation. You can't make, the right decisions in a fear-based mindset or in a hopeless mindset. And there's so much out there, and you need somebody to help you put it together.
You need help and support, but at the end of the day, you also have to decide if you're willing to live. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks about what you're doing. It doesn't matter if your spouse thinks you're crazy or if they're not willing to change their diet, right? What matters is that you have to do it for you. And that's where I was at that place early on when Micah, my wife, thought I'd lost my mind, right? She, in the very early days, like, she didn't understand, and she was having a hard time supporting me because she thought I was making
orange
mistakes.
From drinking so much carrots. You're nuts.
Right. It turned orange. Only eating raw food. I'm just obsessing about health and nutrition. And I was trying to, evangelize to her, right? Trying to get her up to speed with me. But, I was reading all the books. She wasn't. And it just sounded like I was just a crazy person, right? Yeah. But she did come around eventually, and that was good. That was helpful. But yeah, I just want folks to know that, it's up to you. You just, if it's a matter of life and death, you just can't worry about what anybody thinks about you. You can't. I know it's a cliche, I don't, but it's true. You really have to stop caring about what anyone thinks if you want to save your own life and if you want to get well. You just have to do it for you. And the cool thing is that people will come around, right? The people that thought you were crazy eventually think you're a genius when you heal yourself, right? Then they want to know what you did. And so, that's a good feeling, right? Yes. I did it, and I love the Everest analogy, which I find myself using a lot, but it's healing cancer, it's like climbing Mount Everest, right? And if you want to climb Mount Everest, there's two ways to do it. One is you could fly to Nepal and just, start climbing, but you're probably going to die. The other way is to study people who have climbed it successfully, right? To read and research and learn and train and prepare, right? And then take the path that they took up the mountain, hire a Sherpa, that's the right way to do it, is study and learn from people who have done it successfully, who have gone up the mountain and came back down, they survived. And so you are one of those people. Right. That's why we're doing another interview. That's why I interview survivors, because every single person has a unique story, but there's all these common threads. And so the world can see, if they watch these interviews, oh yeah, there is a way to do this. And there's a way up the mountain, right? Most people are kind of going the same way.
Yeah. And the amount of people that I know that are doing square one that will contact, will get a hold of me on social media or wherever through my blog, or and it just seems like you're just having amazing things happening over on your end, that just from what they're telling me. So that's how I get in with what's going on square one, is from the people who tell me I'm doing square one and this is what my results look like, So
I do have a coaching program. It's called Square One, if those of you who don't know it. But yeah, it's just, we have a private online support community, and in the program, I just, tell you exactly what you need to do. And the people who actually do what I did and what you did, right? Mm-hmm. Hardcore life change, diet change, exercise, stress reduction, supplements, forgiveness, people who really do it, do really well. They just do. They their tumors shrink, their blood work improves, they lose weight, their cholesterol comes down, wonderful things happen, and we have all these testimonials that are piling up, and it's really, really encouraging, to see that. And it's not you can't promise a cure to anybody, but we know these principles of holistic health and healing are powerful. If you put them to practice in your life, they will only help. right? They won't hurt you. And that's the difference. Like, these things will only help you. They can only help you. They cannot cause you harm. That's the, Hippocratic oath of medicine, like, first do no harm. So it's like, we want to encourage people to do everything in their power to help themselves get well without any risk of harm. And nutrition does that, and exercise does that. Unless you overdo it at the gym or something, right?
And monitor carefully.
Yes, monitor your progress. That's right.
Don't just go, oh, I think it's doing great. Yeah, that's one thing that's been a huge theme. If I have one last thing to say, it's
yes, please
monitor carefully. Like, don't just assume. You know what I'm saying. Like, you want to see your progress, and
you need a relationship with a doctor,
mm-hmm.
with medical professionals and I had one that can order blood work and scans, right? So you can see what's happening in your body, right? That is very important. I mean, I have a whole module about it in my program about testing and monitoring your progress. Like, yeah, it's a very good thing. And some patients get scared, and they're kind of scared to find out, what if it's bad news? I don't want to know, that kind of thing. But you really do need to know what's happening, because if what's happening is good, great, you get more encouragement. If what's happening is not great, then that can be a wake-up call to really get serious or make some changes or whatever. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. All right, so we've gone kind of long on this one, but it's been really fun. I'm glad. Thanks for hanging out for so long. Is there anything you want to say, just a last minute or two, just like a word of encouragement for somebody that's newly diagnosed? Like, what do they need to know? Or what's the first thing you would say to somebody if they called you up and said, Cortney, I just got a cancer diagnosis. Like, what do I need to know?
Oh, first thing. I mean, lately.
No pressure. I know, because I know you could talk for hours, but you know what I'm saying.
I'll make this, I'm very good at, I can make it short. For many years now, I don't have a protocol or a program to recommend. So I usually send them your way because I know they can find support there and they can find community there. And then I tell them about Healing Strong, which we covered, because you can also find support in community. And then I tell them, look over my blog and be prayerful and ask God to direct your steps. And that's usually what I tell people. I still, every week, at least one or two people will text me. Lately, it's becoming like friends from high school or friends from college whose, father or, husband's father is diagnosed with cancer. And that's what I tell them. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not particularly in a time in my life where I can direct people's steps or help them for much. I mean, I'm very devoted to the needs of my family. And, but yeah, that's, I'm grateful that there are excellent resources today because of the experiences of people like you and myself from 15 years ago that, we're building on what the people before us, that we found our information from, and we're just making it more accessible. So
that's good. Yeah.
I would just say too, Chris, is that don't feel like you have to live quietly as you heal. You can be as open-armed or about that as you want. And also that you don't have to be perfect before you share. As you learn, as you experience, you never know how God will use you to encourage someone else or to bring someone else or alongside of you, or another resource alongside of you. So just don't feel like you have to, hide what you're doing. Don't feel like you have to keep it quiet until you figured everything out and then you can talk about it or anything like that. Just be humble and open about it as you're going through it. And it's amazing just what God will do, I think.
Yeah, when you put stuff out there, people find it, and you have no idea who's watching or listening or reading, when you're sharing your story or your experience or your mistakes, right? Yeah, I mean, it's really incredible the impact you can have in the world now because of the internet, right? Because of social media and YouTube and whatever. But I totally agree, and I want to add one little bit to that, to what you said, is that it kind of cuts both ways, right? So like if you have cancer, it's important to be really self-aware, because if you're public about it online, You can get a lot of criticism, and it can
I
create
was
a lot
gonna
of.
say the same thing, and I was like, I'm gonna let my husband say his thing, but I was thinking
I
that
didn't have online in mind when I
just
was talking about
protect
it.
yourself, like you said, be
Yeah,
self-aware.
yeah. Just be aware. Like, you can get a lot of criticism, and it can create a lot of stress and anxiety. Like, if you're trying to be sort of a public cancer patient,
Oh, yeah.
public survivor. So it's okay either way. Like, it's okay to retreat and be in a quiet place where you're just taking care of yourself. Or if you put yourself out there, just do it in a way that you're not presenting yourself as an expert, like a know-it-all, that you're just saying, hey, this is my journey and this is what I'm doing and I'm learning. And if you want to follow me as I go through this journey,
Yeah,
okay.
I think that could quickly become a second job. I just mean
Yes.
like one-to-one conversation, sharing time with family, someone you meet in passing at the grocery store, that kind of thing. I mean, like from a very Gen X perspective, not so much Gen Y or Gen Z kind of thing. It's more like, just be open-handed where God has you versus like trying to live in this sort of stressful secrecy. Now to try to get.
Oh yeah, no, I'm with you there. To people, when you meet people, especially, yeah, like tell them who you are and what you're doing, what you're going through, especially those one-on-one encounters. Yeah. We're going full circle here back to the beginning, but one of my little mini miracles is I went on a men's retreat like a month after my diagnosis with my church, and I brought, all my food with me, just a bunch of vegetables and stuff and juices and things. And I think we're in like the first meeting of the weekend, right? And a guy came up to me from another city who I knew, and we were catching up, and I was like, yeah, I got diagnosed with cancer a couple months ago and I'm on a raw food diet and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh, a raw food diet, huh? He's like, I know somebody else who is on a raw food diet. Yeah. He's like, they're sitting right over there. And I had never met another person who ate a raw food diet at that point. And I was like, are you serious? And so I went over and introduced myself to this guy. And he was like, yeah, my wife had Crohn's disease, and they said, she needed to take this medication. Eventually she's going to lose her colon. And we found this book, and it was about raw foods, and she got on a raw food diet, and her Crohn's disease healed. And I was like, oh, whoa. Like, like it was amazing, right? That's what you're talking about. Like I just was sharing my story, and all of a sudden it opened up this relationship, and turned out they lived. It was funny because this retreat was like somewhere way out of town. I don't remember where it was, but this couple lived like right outside of Memphis. So they're actually pretty local to me. And, but yeah, that was the first person I ever met who was familiar with raw foods, and his wife had healed a chronic disease with that approach. So, I mean, that was so huge for me in that moment, like a huge signpost on the path, right?
Yes.
You're going the right way.
Confirmation.
Yeah, confirmation. Like God just saying, I'm going to provide for you. Like, don't worry. Like, so anyway.
That's awesome, man.
Well,
all right. Well, listen, Kevin, Cortney, I love you both. You're amazing people. I'm so glad we know each other, that we're friends. I'm so glad that you're doing well, Cortney, that you've healed, and you've been a huge help to a lot of people. And it's just wonderful to,
thank you.
Yeah, to know you both. And I'm glad we got time to do this and catch up. And so thank you.
Man, we love you too. And we think it's just you're just one of our own many miracles, as you say, and just blessed to have met you. And we're just, we consider you a dear friend, as I hope at least.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far in the video, then it was great. And please share it with people you care about. Help us spread this message of hope that you can heal. Cancer does not have to be a death sentence. And Cortney Campbell is an awesome example of that. Again, you can find her at anticancermom.com, also on Instagram, anticancermom. And please don't blow up her inbox. She is a busy mom of 5. So, but she's got a lot of resources.
Responder that'll go out to you if you do.
There's an autoresponder, right? I'm too busy changing diapers.
It says I'm a busy mom of 3 kids. It's an old one.
Oh, you need to update it. Yeah.
Oh, we gotta update that.
She's too busy making snacks and stuff.
Yes, chopping salad.
Yes. So anyway, but please follow her, because she just has so much wisdom and wonderful life stuff, you know, cancer survival and life stuff and mom stuff to share. And I think you'll really enjoy it. So, all right. See ya.
Bye.
See ya.